Good evening, good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to Guesty APAC online meetup. Today we'll be covering a topic that obviously on everyone's mind, the coronavirus. We will be talking about how to deal with this global pandemic in a panel discussion with some of the best minds in the business. On basically how they navigate. They will share how they navigate the coronavirus to enable business stability while still providing top-notch guest service. Just kind of a bit about myself, those of you who don't know me. My name is Yoav Turel, also go by the name Yoey. I'm the managing director of APAC here, of APAC for Guesty. And as I said, we are bringing today a few of the top property management companies from the short-term rental ecosystem in APAC to discuss their strategies and how they cope with the current climate. I must say, we run a series of webinars and meetups globally, and it's interesting kind of to see the different stages, phases of each region, of each country. I think, I don't know, from our perspective, from what we see, I think that here at this side of the world, we are kind of at a bit, let's say, maybe better or more positive, or starting to see some positivity compared to other parts in the world, and we'll also touch that later on. Just quickly about kind of in terms of the operation. So just make sure that you kind of all your audio is set and you can hear us. We can't hear you, but we can definitely, or hopefully you will definitely kind of hear us. Don't worry about the accent, that's built in. Can't do anything with that, so I'll try to do my best. We will be recording the event and share it via email for later on access. And you have a Q&A icon that please submit any questions. We will collect all the questions. We have at the end a section for that, so we will make sure that we are addressing these questions. Now, a big shout out to our panelists today. We have here Aaron from Optinest Holdings, Joseph from KozyGuru, John from the Urban Butler, and Mark from MaisonNets. So first of all, thank you very much for making the time and the effort preparing the stuff that you're about to present. You will kind of speak more about each one on his own business shortly. And we're very pleased and honored to have you here. A bit of a breakdown on how it's kind of how the next hour plus is going to look like. I'll speak briefly, just few words, mainly around data and insight that we see at our end. The main part will be the panel discussion. There will be each one of the panelists will present their own view, their own approach, probably around 10 minutes each, and then we will have our Q&A session. With me, by the way, on the call, we have the rest of the Guesty team. We have with us Frosina, which will jump on later on in the Q&A section. We have Zoe, Gabby, Abby, Shanthini, and I believe few more of the Guesty also are logging in. Speaking about Guesty, and just kind of briefly, for those of you who might be less familiar with Guesty and what we do, so our mission, our core mission is to help streamline basically the complex operation that and operation needs that property managers are tasked with, anything from staff management to task automation, 24/7 guest communication. We basically try to provide solutions to these key pain points and help the property manager to save time and to focus on their growth. We see ourselves as a one-stop shop for OTAs and booking platforms. In addition to that, we power a marketplace of many third-party tech solutions that basically try also to make the life easier for the property managers. We try to cater for as many opportunities as possible. Now that's kind of almost kind of that's about kind of Guesty. I just wanted to add that one of the things that we do now, following the impact of the coronavirus on the short-term rental ecosystem, we created an info center that act as a resource point for property management companies. By the way, clients, non-clients, it's free access with tips, actionable advice, solutions, and many more ideas to help everyone to stay on top of this global health crisis in order to come out of it stronger. You see the link there. I encourage you to visit there. It's updated pretty much on a daily basis. Lots of great stuff. We see overall lots of great stuff out there from companies, and that's our contribution for the effort. Some insights and stats that we see. So we wanted to share an update on the average nights being booked when it comes to new reservation. We see the guests create new reservation and making kind of, or the way that they create, have significant changes on the average night they book. If kind of we went from, I saw in LinkedIn, somebody posted that they refer to the before the Corona time as BC, all right? So to use BC, it was 4.5 nights on an average, and now we're talking about 9 nights globally, and this is quite significant a jump, and I'm sure that, you know, you'll hear from our speakers, and I'm sure that probably some of you in the audience are experiencing even longer stays. This is likely due to the change in the guests' behavior. You know, rather than using properties for vacation, they basically use them as self-iso places, self-quarantine, social distancing, to medical stuff, again, and we'll hear more about it later on. We see in terms of a reservation for the summertime in this side of the world, we see that we are at 85% compared to last year, which is, again, it's not bad. It shows that there is optimism for travel later on this year. Many are going to save their vacation days to book longer stays later on. I don't think that there will be someone that at the end of it will say, oh, it was a tough time, I just want some time to relax at home. I don't think that we'll hear that sentence. I think that people will want to go out. Looking into Google Trends, and you know, and you can check it kind of easily as well. The search query of when can I travel, how soon can I travel? We see a really spike in that usage. People are actively using or searching, and we hear it from, you know, we hear it from our clients, we hear it from friends, families, basically just waiting to go to get out. The last bit is also an interesting thing, the VIX index, also known as the fear index. So basically, the higher the VIX number means that investors see a significant risk in the market, whether it's downwards and upwards. Basically, what we see in recent weeks, we see that the VIX number is actually dropping dramatically. You know, kind of from March 16 all the way to April 14th, we see that kind of it dropping, and that can suggest that fear levels are decreasing. So overall, there are a few good signs for optimism. Last before we start, before I hand over to our speakers, one of our newest initiatives, we got kind of these ideas also from some of our clients, is basically connecting property management companies with guests that are looking for whether it's self-quarantine or social distancing or they just kind of stuck and can't fly back or kind of find any other kind of accommodation. We're basically trying to matchmake between some of our clients and guests that are in need. Some of the panelists here are already in it. It's free to join, and kind of please contact us if you are interested in. That's the page and that's how it looks like. So I believe that was my part. So with that, and to kick things off, to get into the main part of the session, we will start shortly with Aaron Zhang, co-founder of Optinest Holdings, and he will discuss best practices for marketing in the COVID-19 era. He will be followed by Joseph Lang, the founder of KozyGuru, who will present strategies for attracting longer quarantine stays. Straight after will be John Laurie, from the founder of the Urban Butler, joining us from Auckland, from beautiful Auckland. And he will share best practices on communication with guests, staff, and service providers. And then we'll wrap it with Mark Hodge, the director of MaisonNets, who will show us what we can learn from self-isolation Facebook groups. That will be one of the things that he will mention. So what I'll do now, Aaron, I'm starting to shift it to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Zhang. I'm the co-founder of Optinest. Thank you, Guesty, for having me here. Within my presentation today, I would like to share some thoughts and our experience with how to retain existing listings and how to deal with new leads. Plus, I got a couple useful tips. Hope it helps. All right, let's begin. Retain existing listings. In terms of the dealing with worrying clients, timing plays a critical role in relation of keeping our clients from overthinking and panicking. I'm not saying the sooner we reach out to them, the less problems they would have. However, it will surely give them the sign that as their agent, we are on top of this crisis and have been preparing for the worst. It all began on 14th of March, Saturday. Airbnb announced the free cancellations policy. And very soon after that, Australian government launched stage 1 lockdown, which is the border closure. What we have done back then was on 15th on March, very next day, I wrote a letter to each of our clients, stating the situation we are at, as well as addressing the options they have, such as putting their listings on the long-term market, actions for attracting long-term reservations, new cleaning protocols for COVID-19, etc. Basically, yes. Be loud of what you're doing in order to let them know you are working on it. Secondly, in the meantime, be a step ahead of what they see and what they hear. News, rumors, and policies are flooding everywhere on a daily basis, like this one. Is Airbnb illegal, or is staying in an Airbnb illegal? I'm sure majority of the public takes it as, yes, it is illegal to host and stay in Airbnb. However, the government statement addresses otherwise. You see, if we don't direct them to the truth and the facts, the clients would have made wrong decisions and judgments which could potentially be taken advantage of by others or making a loss in the future. In the end of the day, as a short-term rental focused agent, our enemy is not long-term rental, nor other short-term rental agents. We are working in this together, making right decisions for our clients with our knowledge and the professionalism. We are supposed to be their eyes and hands. On top of that, consider dropping your rates to where you are comfortable at. will certainly indicate the alliance with our clients. It could be 2%, 5%, or less cleaning fee, or more service, etc. It doesn't have to be money involved. It can be ethic-related actions. Last but not the least, lay out the benefits and the risks for both rental types. It is our job to let the clients know what they might walk into. Keep them updated with the latest policy and explain the impacts that comes with it. I believe there's a lot of homeowners desperately are switching into long-term, and this has caused the market overflow, leading to a huge price drop. Take an example as a one-bedroom Airbnb style furnished apartment in Melbourne CBD. Market price was 500 to 550. Now, guess what? It is 400, and still haven't got much applications. Because nowadays, the long-term rental market, the listings are flooding everywhere. I understand owners have no choices, but they have the right to be informed with the true and accurate information. Okay, moving on to next. Believe it or not, we still have new leads coming in. This is our strategies accommodating with those new leads. First thing to do is to understand the new client's position and interests, like why they are reaching out to us. Are they struggling with long-term leasing? Are they looking for an agent because they don't want to risk hosting by themselves? Is it because their former short-term rental agent closed down? With all the information you get from the new leads, share your estimation with them of what the future will look like based on the current situation. Feeding them with good news, and thank God we have a few. Like Victoria lockdown possibly will finish on the 11th of May. Some news say the bars and the restaurants can be reopened in July. In August and September, interstate traveling might be allowed. In October, international travels potentially could be put back in places. If we keep doing what we are doing now, everything above, just as I mentioned, can come true. Okay, based on your estimation and come up with a realistic proposal for them. And do remember, now is not a good time to over-promote the ability to make more money in short-term rental market. However, try to emphasize the flexible side of being a short-term rental property. There is no one better than others. Giving the new clients more rental option is the key skill set nowadays. Moving on to next. See, this is what I actually wrote on our WeChat official account. So basically in this article, you could see I stated the facts. I've been telling my clients what are the current guests' purposes for staying in our property, in able to let them know it's not illegal for us to host the Airbnb at all. There are cases where they need work, they need medical purposes, and they need self-quarantine. So they are very helpful to our existing clients. As far as how much to spend on the marketing, I believe we are all in the same similar pages. We are trying to spend on something that is only necessary. It's really based on individual finance status. To the most of cases, what we can do is put in time and effort into content creation via social media. Whether it's posting blogs, articles, or making video clips, they are free to make, although it requires a lot of time and effort, which is what we have plenty of at this stage, isn't it? In the content, you can show what you have done and what achievement it has brought to you. Post some of your successful listings calendar, filled up with reservations, not to mislead the public, but to state their outhopes in short-term rental market. At the end of my time, I have a couple useful tips worth mentioning. At least it's working on us. Be prepared for November and December. Open your calendar dates only for November, December, and January with the higher nightly rates. there are chances to be booked in a good price. I don't have anything to prove it works yet, but we do have a few new bookings in December. Another one is to reach out to your canceled guests. We have successfully retracted about 10 to 15% of canceled guests to book with us in the future. I'm not too sure how many of them will book eventually, but hey, it doesn't cost anything to chase them. Last one seems useless. You are absolutely right. The truth is, I didn't know any of my preparation against this coronavirus pandemic would work at the first place. And has it been working? I guess not really. We are still struggling here. But one thing I know is for sure, 40% occupancy rates is better than 0%. That is if we didn't do nothing. Plus, the way it looks now is a lot better. Logically speaking, we have experienced the worst already. Anything onwards will be like bouncing back from the bottom. So let's stay safe and stay healthy. This is my time now. Thank you, Guesty, again.
Thank you very much, Aaron. I can personally testify that we get a lot of the positivity from you, and thanks to you. Every time that kind of we're not sure, giving you a call, it put us back to place. So thank you very much for that. And back to our session. And now we are going to Joseph from KozyGuru. So Joseph, just kind of going to release the deck back to you, and yeah, go for it.
Yep. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joseph Lund. For those who don't know me, I'm the founder of KozyGuru. So we have been with Guesty as a long-term partner since 2017, and thanks Guesty again for having me for tonight. So what I'm going to present today is talking about the strategy of like how to attract long-term stay, a long stay in this virus attack. So let's begin for today. All right, so we as a property management company, we play a big role in the market to support everyone in this special period. So actually we do receive many inquiries in mid-March due to the travel restriction around the world. So people like they getting stuck in Australia, or some residents coming back from overseas, they're looking for places for quarantine themselves for at least 14 days. So that's what the government proposing, like people having coming back have to quarantine themselves for 14 days. So what we have been doing to track like a strategy to getting more booking in this special period. So the first thing we do is to improve our webpage and social media account to attract more, to target the correct group of audience. So like we put in the keyword, target keyword will be like quarantine stay package, or we have been using different hashtag on Instagram, on Facebook. So also our marketing team member also approach some target audience. Saying we have a place for a quarantine 14 days package. So by having them, they're letting them know that we have a place for a special offer for 14 stay package. And also we do receive many last minute booking, and also many potential guests asking, is there any special offer, or like what will you guys be providing us if within the 14 days? Because the guests can't go out in the 14 days. So we will be providing a 14 days package, like a supplies for the essential supply for them during this stay. And also we do have a dedicated team to work around the city or those properties for helping our guests to source essential needs if they need any more. So we'll be providing like tissue paper and soap, shampoo, and all the cooking essential things that we do need. And also we have been talking to our client. So basically we just want to make the place look fun, and our guests who staying in place for 14 days, they may get bored to many people having stayed to a same place for 14 days. So basically like we have been adding additional entertainment package to our guests. So we'll be like providing Netflix or Disney Plus account to our place. And also we'll be putting some new board game or like card games in the property for the guests who will be coming as a family with kids. And also, so how can we like getting more bookings? So everyone talking to the price. So we providing a opportunity to offer a quarantine package for 14 days, run by a massive discount for those period. So in mid-March to April, so we'll be running a 25 to 30% off of normal rate. So we'll be jumping like from 165 in average per night and drop to $115. So by doing this, what we can see our occupancy rate is from like 10% occupancy rate in March or April, like jump to 75%. So that helped our client a lot, and also like helping many people who are staying in the property, they can save their money as well. And the next in the 14 days quarantine stay. So people will be moving out after 14 days, and also the restriction of the travel ban will be like getting easier. So we have been discussed with our client by changing the strategy by a more dynamic pricing model. So by doing this, we are comparing long-term and short-term market to set the price, and also monitor the inquiry level in order to keep the property more competitive on market. So what we're doing is like we're jumping on realestate.com.au, domain.com, and also comparing the hotel price offering nearby. So we are setting the price and keep monitoring. So having the property is more competitive on the market and attracting more people to stay in the place. And last but not least, so we're saying the target for the first responder. So thanks to them for protecting us and also working as a frontline as a safeguard in this special period. So, and also actually when we receiving those inquiries, we heard a lot of cases that many nurses or doctors, they're trying to stay away from their families. They're working in this hospital and they feel worried to bring the virus or spread the virus to the family members and also to the community. So we do have many properties around hospital area and also some clinic. So as a result, we turn those property to it's more like an isolation center for those type of first responder. We have been talking to our clients, so we're trying to providing more discount to the first responder to defend them for protecting us in this special period. So, and also we will be waiving our management fee for those reservations booked by any frontline staff as well. Yeah. So that will be all I'm sharing for today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joseph. Thank you. And now we'll move to John from the Urban Butler. Just before you log yourself, John, I'll just say that I learned from you the term BAU, which is business as unusual. I believe that will be probably part of your theme now. So I'm stop sharing it in my end. Brilliant. Great.
Okay. So at the Urban Butler, we operate solely out of Auckland in New Zealand, and we've been going for about 2.5 years. So I guess it's important to note at the beginning that New Zealand has had, from what we understand, much harsher lockdown rules in place since the 25th of March. And we've extended now another few days up until next Tuesday, the 28th. So this is really our experience and recommendations from a New Zealand perspective. From our experience and the last 4 weeks, we have found that communication is the most valuable tool that you can have. From our experience, speaking to owners, talking to them about the bottom line, what their expectations are from both a revenue and yield point of view is very important. Explain to them what options are available in terms of mid-term stays and longer stays, and any other potential offerings that you might have. Typical questions are, what happens after the lockdown, and how are we going to market? Who are we going to attract? And obviously some of those questions are easy to answer, and some of them are constantly changing. So it's a challenge. Guests, we need to be empathetic to our guests. A lot of uncertainty breeds certainly stress amongst guests. Some of them are desperately trying to get repatriated to their countries overseas. They don't know if their jobs are secure. They don't know if their families are safe, and that adds to the stress. Regular emails and EDMs we found informing guests and owners as to what we were doing, and the latest updates in terms of regulations and movements was definitely very beneficial. It's important that staff also keep up to date with any regulations and new requirements, so that they are able to convey those to both owners and guests. And it's also important to be honest with your staff in terms of, you know, where the business is going, any savings that they can help the business with, whether that's budgetary wise or bringing stuff in-house that may have previously been contracted out, those sorts of things. Contractors, in terms of, you know, electricians and plumbers and that sort of thing, making sure that they have a proper health and safety plan, that they are considered to be essential services, and that they have the correct working practices in terms of distancing and PPE and all those sorts of things are very important. Building managers, we found a lot of building managers were struggling with the lockdown and interpreting the rules slightly differently. And that obviously, you know, creates a little bit more stress from every side. It's important to understand exactly what they require. We went to the nth degree in terms of giving them information about all of the guests, understanding what they considered around visitors, around essential services, and around lockdown periods for that building. For example, some of them had security on from 6 p.m. till 6 a.m. and that sort of thing, and then conveying that to the guests that are staying there so that they understand exactly what their position is as well. From a cleaning perspective, we had a very detailed cleaning procedures document, and that included checklists for each of the properties, which were recorded. And that's really, you know, just around sort of World Health Organization and local health guidelines. It's important that, you know, in there you've got stuff around distancing, PPE, equipment, products, sit down times, etc. And then from a due diligence perspective, we had a very detailed guest register, which included pre and post travel plans and itineraries and that sort of thing, which we'll get onto in a second. I couldn't resist putting this photo into the guests. So our guest tracker was basically, you know, we've always got a lot of detail around guests, but this was over and above what we would normally do. So we put together this spreadsheet that we were able to send certain parts of it through to the building managers and that sort of thing, but also have it as a very detailed record from our point of view. Obviously the apartment, any building management compliance that needed to be considered, guest details and the source of their booking. And when it came to contact details, we had, you know, home addresses, we had copies of passports, itineraries and dates of travel and any potential changes in those dates. And we kept all of that on record. We also kept a record of the cancellation policy, because obviously people had booked at different times and what that meant to any changes in their plans as to how we would have to react to that. Also in the guest tracker, we had links to all their travel documents that I was talking about before. So that was, you know, everything from your passports through to travel itineraries and flight information, etc. The biggest opportunity I think that we found again out of this uncharted territory was really, you know, the opportunity to make a difference to the guests, and that was really around hospitality and empathy. You know, typically we play a role as an accommodation provider, which is a roof over your head, and also, you know, recommendations on places to dine and places to go and that sort of thing. Now that role then changed to being more of a sounding board and also being a contact for them, especially for people that are overseas that are, you know, that are struggling to know what they're doing next. One particular example of that was an elderly French couple, Renee and Caroline, who rushed back to Auckland to find somewhere to stay prior to the lockdown. they were unsure of when their repatriation flight was going back to France. They were even unsure whether they could get accommodation in Auckland. So we managed to put them up. And whilst they were awaiting their flight, they also conveyed to us that they may want to extend. So we blocked a few days out after their booking, their current booking, just in case they needed to extend, which they did eventually for a couple of days. Other things that came up around this this particular booking was language barriers, also telephone issues. They weren't able to call 0800 numbers from their French mobile and that sort of thing. So we helped them out with all of those issues, and it just made their lives much easier. The top review here is one that we got from Renee and Caroline, and it just talks about reactivity, availability, kindness, and humanity, and that's really the best result I think that you could really wish for. Of course, they don't all quite go like this. We had an American couple stay with us that moved into a brand new apartment a couple of days before lockdown. There were a few teething problems with the apartment around the waste disposal and that sort of thing, which we managed to solve them, although it may have taken us 24, 36 hours due to the lockdown rules and the essential services and what have you. Unfortunately, they didn't see it quite the same as we did, or the same as Renee and Caroline did, and their review was not as complimentary as that. But that's the kind of environment that we're living in at the moment, with people being highly stressed. I think the best thing that we can all do is just be empathetic and be kind, and that will be the way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, John. I think that kind of I heard a few times that empathy is the new currency, and I think that's kind of showed well in your example.
Thanks.
And now to Mark Hodge from MaisonNets to share with us his experience. So Mark, I'm stopping sharing at my end now and handing over to you. Please go.
Thank you, Yoav. Firstly, I'd just like to say Frosina and Yoav have been an absolute joy to work with, and their support with their entrance into Australia has been amazing for us over the last 6 months. Obviously, it's been a very trying time for everyone at the moment. So I just wanted to share a little bit about what we do. We consider ourselves to be a premium management service. We have a meet and greet service. We can engage anything from catering to chauffeurs, and we also have concierge that do meet and greets. And during this time, I think it's been important to note that we have still kept that going. Although, you have to practice social distancing, but there's also the problem with lockboxes and making sure that they are clean and safe, as well as making sure that all of our cleaners are totally briefed on what needs to be done. And our guests are our consideration, and I think we all agree on that. And what the other presenters have talked about are all the safety issues, all of the codes of conduct that we really have to pursue during this time. What I'd like to share with you is probably a little bit different in what we've noticed. You will you would have seen in the media last week that obviously the media will put up whatever they want to do to sell a story. And we had some of our staff and also some of our clients contacting us directly the next day, wondering if Airbnb was legal in New South Wales. Now, this came out, and I had to follow this up, so to get this out to everyone. Kevin Anderson, who has been the Minister for Regulation, you would know that we have the 180-day rule in New South Wales that they are trying to bring in, and there's been a whole lot of compliance issues around that. Kevin Anderson has been across all of this, And what should also be noted that just the other day, the bill, well, it was actually supposed to come in yesterday. The compliance was supposed to come in yesterday, the 20th of April, and it didn't go through. And I think one of the main reasons it didn't go through, which is what I've been arguing about for the last 6 to 8 months as to why, is because of the oversupply. I have a lot of really good relationships with real estate agents within New South Wales, who I've been having constant talks with. So what you will see from this is the media statement that came out reports that it is not illegal to stay in short-term rental accommodation. So it's incorrect. There is no ban on any kind of this accommodation. The New South Wales government advice to prevent the spread of COVID-19 has been very clear. As per the public health orders, people must stay at home with the exception of a number of circumstances, including work and to provide care. The New South Wales government acknowledges that in these circumstances, the provision of short-term accommodation is often critical, particularly for our frontline health workers. So you will see it's pretty clear there what they're saying. We've had a couple of instances. We had a property in Adelaide. I don't know if you all know, but South Australia and Western Australia, Queensland have their borders locked at the moment. So as well as Tasmania, we've actually looked at certain ways of finding accommodation for workers over there that can't fly in and out of the state. And that has helped us with a couple of bookings in Adelaide and 1 or 2 in Perth. The laws keep changing, and it keeps evolving state by state. We had to cancel a booking in Adelaide only last week for a family that wanted to have a nice stay over Easter by a pool, but obviously they couldn't go through with that. We had to point that out. It's our responsibility, all of our responsibility, to point that out to the guests and let the owners know why we have to do that. If we're hosting on behalf of our owners, it's our responsibility, because there are laws around vacationing that it really has to be deemed as necessary travel. So a few weeks ago, we decided that we would put up, I noticed in New Zealand they had this, but I saw that it hadn't been done in Australia. So we decided to put up an Australian self-isolation page on Facebook. This has been instigated by our team. It has been prepared by our team. So what we did was we decided that we would create a page that people could come to find accommodation and to put their names and numbers down so that we could actually do this for them. So we've invited people to join, and we've tried to find accommodation for people that are either stuck, they can't get back home. In New South Wales, for instance, there's a two-tier market, which in Adelaide and in Perth, it's not quite the same. Melbourne to a certain extent, but what you will actually find is there are a lot of overseas travellers who are here on holiday working visas. So there is a big market that has left the country because those workers are in tourism. They are in the service industry. They're working in bars, restaurants, cafes, and also working as cleaners. So our government won't support them. They have to go back. The market has completely dried up. I was speaking to a real estate agent only 2 days ago who told me that in Darlinghurst, if you have 81 bedroom apartments available, that is considered a big oversupply. He confirmed with me that there was 180 in Darlinghurst and 120. So as you'll see, there is a huge oversupply in Sydney, that there are in Melbourne as well. And it's our responsibility to educate our owners and let them know that the market has changed. It's changed drastically. It's been across all of this. But we set this up to try and help with, obviously, frontline workers that need to be isolated from families and loved ones. We've had a couple of inquiries this week in Melbourne for properties that I directed a call to at Epworth, right near Epworth. We've got a couple of inquiries there. We then subsequently set up some other pages. So anyone that is interested, that wants to jump on, you can look for these pages and you can ask to join. And then we encourage you to invite as many people as you can to this page. If you have properties yourself that you want to put up, you're welcome to put them up. We've actually opened this up to areas that we don't have property in. We then subsequently created a page for Perth. We created one for Adelaide. We created one for Melbourne. These ones are fairly new, but the Australian one was first. So, I mean, we're just inviting anyone to join and put these up. It is changing. I think we will come out of this far quicker than people will realise. I mean, I think it's probably going to be 2 or 3 months. But what I have been doing is actually talking to a professional that's been in the travel industry since 2001. He started his travel business right after the collapse of Ansett and just after September 11. And he's seen a huge shift. Just before we had the lockdown, he saw a huge shift towards domestic travel and what we call staycations, people staying in their own backyard. So I think it's important to realise that when we come through this, the rest of the world is going to take a lot longer to get over this. We're not going to see, for quite some time, we're not going to see a huge amount of overseas travel, but there will be a lot of domestic travel. And I think that's really important to know. So thank you. I guess that's it from me, and back to you, Yoav.
Thank you very much, and that's also a great kind of way kind of to end. Let me share the screen now, and just say that I think that's also a great way to end with that kind of note on the domestic travel, because that's the assumption, and we're definitely kind of counting on that. So thank you. Now, please kind of, we got some really good questions. We encourage you to type and ask questions, because now it's the panelist hour, ourselves as well, time to basically address your questions. So please ask us. I'll invite my colleague Frosina to join me in the Q&A session and kick it off. Frosina, over to you.
Thanks, Yoav. Hi, everybody. I know I can't hear you, but you can hear me. So this is a great power play on my end. Just to kind of kick off the question and answer section, I can see here a question for Aaron, which I think is a very interesting one of how, Aaron, have you been implementing new technology to mitigate the loss from coronavirus? So things like, dynamic pricing. You mentioned kind of putting your prices higher up until December, January, task management tools, business analytics, etc.
Right. Thank you, Frosina. What we have been doing is basically using the Guesty year management function to keep our price streamlined with the market price. And second of all, we actually constantly search in the market to find out the balance point, if it's actually attractive to the current guests. and as well as we give our customer service team a certain power, so they can give out the discounts without asking us. So that will be quick for the guests to book our accommodation.
Amazing. That's really, really good. And kind of rolling the ball off of that, there's different strategies that people obviously putting into place. Mark, yourself, do you see that specifically in Australia there's a bit maybe of a stronger trend on short-term rental property market, companies shifting towards maybe a hybrid portfolio of the short-term, mid-term with extended stays and potentially even long-term?
Yes, I do. We're seeing a lot of that at the moment. So we're seeing people come in into properties. Obviously, everyone's after a bargain basement price at the moment because there's so much out there. And I'm sure people would see blanket emails that aren't specifically addressed to one person, but it'll be high, and then they go into their launch of wanting a discount. So they'll be looking to copy and paste these into multiple properties. So a lot of this will start off as a 2 or 3 week booking, and we've seen a couple today that have turned into 3 and 6 month bookings, but obviously at a price much less than what we would normally be charging. Yeah, but I think it's really important to look further down the track to do a bit of a hybrid. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. And do you think that something like that, once introduced, do you think it will be a temporary business kind of adjustment that people do, or do you think it will be something that's going to shift the market and businesses to a hybrid for better?
I think it's going to shift the market. I think what we've actually seen here is going to prompt people to be a little bit more fluid. Myself, I'm actually giving our clients to people that want to do long-term leases, giving them across to real estate agents that I trust. But I know some of those agents are really keen to work with us to do a bit of a hybrid, so that we can flow back and forth between short-term and long-term.
Amazing, thank you. And Joseph, yourself, you clearly have a lot of optimism in you, but do you think that property management companies should be optimistic about the future of travel, specifically about short-term?
So could you repeat your question again? Sorry, I missed it.
Of course. Do you think that the property management companies should be optimistic about future of travel, specifically in the short-term rental space?
So I would pretty agree with what Mark just saying. So in terms of short-term rental management, so the traveler is they're staying a little bit longer in the current moment, but afterwards that the tourism market will come back. We believe the tourism market will bounce back afterwards. So what we're doing right now is more like a hybrid and like a dynamic pricing and also a hybrid management strategy right now. So in short term, mid term, long term, and target the right group of people that coming into Australia and staying with us.
It's really good. I'm glad to hear there's some reiteration in in the business models that Mark kind of mentioned there. John, yourself. I'm just kind of picking you all one by one. I'm sorry. How do you personally ensure that the cleaning standards are being met by your cleaners? Have you changed any operation procedures that can help them do that in light of the coronavirus?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, again, things are changing daily. Recommendations around sit-down periods and that sort of thing, but just making sure that we're on top of those newest bestest guidelines is important, from the additional cleaning that's in place to also disinfecting, and that even goes as far as disinfecting swipes and keys that are going into lock boxes and that sort of thing, to ensure that the whole trail is covered. And we've been also looking at these other products at the moment, unsure as to where this will go, but one of them is called Zuno, and that is a product that kills 99.9% of all bacteria and viruses, and you can get it in different applications. One is like a fogging type application that they say it's food safe and human safe, and the other one is almost like a lacquer that goes onto surfaces. And this, if you read up about it, it's quite an amazing product. It basically lasts, on the painted version up to sort of 4 years, I believe, and the fogging version is something like 3 to 6 months, depending on wear and tear and that sort of thing. So, there are potential new practices out there that will allow us to get guests into apartments quicker in between changeovers and that sort of thing.
Amazing. And in regards to these procedures, are you making current or future guests aware of these cleaning procedures, or are you marking it at first and foremost, or is it kind of in more your descriptions and after they book with you?
Yeah, look, a little bit of both. We're like I said at the beginning of my presentation, the communication between us and the owners and the guests is paramount, and so that's informing the owners what we're doing, and then also informing the guests what we're doing, so they feel comfortable. It's in the communication that comes out from our auto messages in Guesty, and it's also in some of the listings as well. Yeah, sorry, noted in the listings as well.
Thank you. Thank you, John.
Christina, I have a situation at the moment that might be worthwhile talking about. And it's something that I think we could all learn from as well. I have a guest that has been extending week on week from the US, and I've checked in. We've it's actually in my own apartment. So I've been checking in on that particular guest, and as he extends, thinking it might be flights. He's been traveling around New Zealand and Australia for 6 months, so important to know exactly where your guest has come from too. But just with what John was talking about with safety requirements, they don't always pass on exactly what's going on. So I got a call from Airbnb on Saturday to let me know that his brother had passed on the fact that he's actually in hospital in a coma. And that obviously they need to extend or work out moving things out. But at no point in our conversation did he actually let me know that he was sick. It wasn't until I got contacted by Airbnb that I found out that there was a problem. So I guess we really have to be on the lookout. I'm still dealing with that at the moment. But again, knowing that he's been in the apartment, we'll have to go to, further measures to make sure that everything is cleaned and fumigated when he checks out, because he may need to go into that particular apartment after he comes out of hospital. Hopefully he's okay, and he will need to stay there. So when he leaves, there will be more of a process on the cleaning.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. And I think I was kind of pondering over how people can actually quarantine or pay attention to where their guests are going, if they're actually isolating, if they're actually quarantining. I know it's hard enough for the government. So how do us as property managers, how do we take additional measures to ensure isolation and quarantine guests are following protocol? And how do you enforce it with the guest? Maybe Aaron, you can go ahead and extend on that.
Sure. Yes, that's actually a great question. It's a very tricky of how we measure their traveling purposes. See, we're at the point where we want our calendar to be filled up, but we don't actually want to break the laws or break the rules or anything. In the government statement, it clearly says it's not illegal for us to host Airbnb, but it is illegal for any kind of non-essential purposes to travel, to stay in an Airbnb. It doesn't just apply to Airbnb. It should apply to any of the trades, industrial. So here's the thing: if we have a inquiry of staying staying at our Airbnb listings for only 2 nights or 3 nights. What should we do? You know, this is a question I often ask myself. So what we have been doing is actually to using the point where it clearly said it's not against the law for us to host the Airbnb as long as we find out their purposes. So we normally ask why they want to stay in our listings. What the purpose they have. If they lied is on them, not on us. So, and secondly, we in some of our listings we set a minimum stay up to 5 nights minimum, and to encourage a longer reservation to reduce the short ones. But I will say we will reduce that. We will lift that limit very soon after 11th of May in Victoria, and it depends on the things go. And to sum up, basically ask your guests what their purposes are and put in writing, and for the future reference, and use your minimum stay as a weapon to prevent any short stay short stay accommodation reservation. Yes.
Yeah, that's a good tip with the short stay. I'll ask you, but that's a question kind of for everyone because it relates kind of. I'm combining a few of the questions that we got from the audience. So, did any of you get any issues, complaints with whether it's the strata managers, the building kind of manager, or something like that? Kind of, have you heard from the neighbors?
We had a good one. You have. Sorry, jump in.
Yeah.
It's okay. So we all have the good one. So I let you to.
One of our very popular buildings in Auckland on the water has multiple property managers operating out of there. You know, some with substantial portfolios, and as of the 26th of March, I believe, they sent out a letter to all property managers and owners saying that there would be no check-ins and check-outs from the following day, from the 27th, up until the end of the lockdown. Now, as I mentioned to you earlier in my presentation, we had these very detailed guest tracker information, and we forwarded some information to the building manager there and explained to him, you know, this couple has been in Auckland or in New Zealand since January. They are staying until May. They just need to lock down until the end of the lockdown period, whenever that's going to be. They're not a risk in any way. Here's all their travel documents, etc. And it was a straight no. And so other operators that are still operating or potentially still operating out of that building are unable to even get cleaners in there at the moment. And there was a big backlash from all of the property managers, and the answer was, you're not really allowed to do short-term accommodation here anyway. and you know, that in itself is ridiculous because it's a leasehold building, and there would be no yields or no revenue for any owners if they were all on long-term or if they were owner occupiers. So the only real benefit of that building in itself is short-term accommodation. So I think this is going to be a good one to watch as it progresses. Certainly there's more vested property managers in that building than ourselves.
Yeah, it will be an interesting point because I think that as once we'll start kind of to get out of it and get over it, I think that aspect of control, of tracking, of monitoring, who stays, giving the assurance to the neighbors, to the strata manager, I think that might be part of our lives now, kind of taking care of that aspect.
I agree.
Yeah. One more, just kind of as I'm in the sprint of questions. Question to, and again, it can be to anyone. Aaron mentioned it at the beginning. With the long-term rentals, or when you speak with your owners on long-term rentals, do they have the concern of that kind of they can't evict their tenants? Does this come up? We heard it in few cases, but I wonder if you heard it, that's what keeps them staying at short term or mid-term.
Well, the no kick-out policy will only apply to existing long-term tenants. To the new tenants, when they applied, we're actually gonna double screening their bank statements, their work history, and pay slips, etc. So in terms of the new tenants application, they are, generally speaking, are fine with the payment. It's the old ones, that's the one gives the trouble, and we couldn't do anything, to be honest.
Yeah, that's less relevant. Yeah. Okay. Frosina, what else do you have there in your list?
Sure. Well, Joseph, I'm hoping that you can help me answer this one. We kind of touched on it with Aaron, but do you think it's imperative for guests to sign off a disclaimer for COVID, to ask a list of questions that are necessary to recommend? So, have you traveled overseas in the last 14 days? Maybe like a list of 10 is what our user has specifically given an example of.
Yes, we do have a questionnaire form for guests to fill in. We have prepared it with our solicitor in early March. So once the travel ban has been launched in between the over the road, so we have prepared it's more like a Google form, and using the automatic message and send it to our upcoming check-in guests. So in the form, they will be asking. It's more like a disclaimer form as well. So we'll be asking the guests how's their health situation, and when did they stay or when did they go in the last 14 days, and how long are they going to stay here, and what are they planning to do. And also it's more like a declaration form. So it's like protecting ourselves to the landlord, and also to the it's more like to the building as well. So once in case the building manager or the neighborhood, they want to know more about the situation. Also, actually, in case that something happened to the guests and they got a COVID-19, so we can providing the certain document to the government authorization as well. So that is a good practice, and we have been using this and still continuing as well.
I'm glad it has been successful for you. Have you, out of curiosity, had any instances where someone has come out and falsified that information? You've had to use that for any particular reason?
Not at the moment. So luckily, we still like using the same form, and all guests and all the party has been like quite following all the rules as well. So yeah, all good so far.
Glad to hear that. This one looks like it's specific for you, Mark. They're asking what the name of the misting desensitization device was, the name of it. Zoom?
For me.
I didn't give one.
John. Yes.
There is one.
As Zuno is the product, which is the chemical, ZOONO. And they've got some documentation online around what it does and doesn't do. The misting or the fogging machines, I'm not sure where you get them from. The cleaning company that I spoke to that has the product here in Auckland only has a couple of foggers and is struggling to get the fogging machine. So he said it's 3 or 4 weeks before he can get another 4 fogging machines. So clearly these are being used around the world and they're in demand. So yeah, that's all I know about it at this stage.
Yeah, and on that, John, do you see yourself providing an additional assistance to guests that are stuck in the country from a cleaning aspect? So are you offering like free mid-stay cleans or anything like that? Or absolutely any other strategy?
Look, we have been doing that, but only for certain guests. We want to make sure the health and safety of the guests as well as the cleaners is paramount. So anyone who is isolating, no. Anyone that's in lockdown that's been here for a period of time before the outbreak as such and is healthy, then yes. But that needs to be on a case-by-case basis, I believe.
That makes sense.
Unless because you might have something like, Mark's example.
Yeah. Yoav, I believe, has one last question, and then we can... sorry, he wants me to ask one more question. Apologies, I'm misunderstanding things here. Joseph, you mentioned that you kind of add additional things, a little bit of extra flavor for guests to cure a little bit of their boredom. Is there anything else that you change about the apartment, house, or villa if a guest has to stay longer? Do you design it a little bit differently to give them a work from home space or anything like that?
So we'll be making sure the place have been like well stocked. The kitchen will be well stocked for the first thing, and because like people will stay in the property, they have to cook or they maybe using the Uber delivery or Deliveroo, something like that. But like for all the smart TV that we have been talking to our client, so we'll be providing the Netflix and also the Disney Plus account, and also they're making sure the internet supply is good in all the certain states as well. And we have been like providing some board game, and as we know, if the guest is coming as a family and they stay for 14 days or longer with young kids, so we'll be providing some extra board game to them there, because we know that having staying for the same place for 14 days will be quite boring, to be honest.
Yeah, especially if it's not your home. Doesn't feel familiar. Thank you so much for that. I will take myself out of the spotlight and pass it over back to Yoav.
Oh, good. Thank you, Frosina. By the way, Joseph. So only Disney Plus and Netflix. No Stan, no Amazon. I hear that kind of there are some good
I'm
content.
I'm a big fan of Netflix. Sorry.
I'm just giving your tips for free. So I don't know, maybe kind of offer Stan, and it will change the reservations. Look, I'll just before I finish, because one of the questions was also, and it's actually touch kind of what you just spoke about kind of the different trends that we see at our end, and it's definitely kind of the main thing is the different marketing strategies to the different type of travelers that we see. And I think that, as you mentioned now, Joseph, more family. How do you cater to more families? We see examples. We don't see it here. We see it kind of mainly in the US of all the cityscapers that goes out of the city. That's where you feel kind of more. You see kind of more the either the families, and now property managers all start catering for them, as well as all of those that want a work environment. How do they work kind of from home in a better kind of a situation? You touched the kind of, most of you touched kind of the cleaning and the cadence on the cleaning. Now do you equip the kitchen and so on? And yeah, that's definitely kind of one of the strong things that we see. And the other thing I'll just say now, when we touched it at the beginning, is the length of stay. How it increased significantly. And it's a longer stay, and I'll repeat again Aaron's tip around kind of not opening it to short stays as kind of a sort of as pre-qualification to the type of guest that you're getting. Thank you very much, Mark, Joseph, Aaron, John. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your work, the approach, your tips, addressing the questions. Thank you very much for all the audience that attended. We know that there are lots of webinars out there. There are lots of interesting and very good forums. And thank you very much for joining. We will stand around, as we said, we'll stand the recording and we will do a follow-up on that. Thank you also for the Guesty team, for Frosina that joined me, for Abby that was behind the scene and basically conducted everything, and for the entire kind of Guesty team here. Thank you very much, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you, guys.